Mr. Kallen, let me start with you. What is he making fun of?
The male alpha.
It's not true?
No,
Are you kidding?
absolutely
Come
not.
on. Who believes he's not a male alpha? Please raise your hand. Okay. Any more questions? So, Paul, when we first spoke about the firm border for the first time some 2 years ago, I mentioned the word publishing house. And then you corrected me. You said, listen, Dominic, we're not a publishing house. We are a company that owns a publishing house. So that makes me interested to know what it is, in your opinion, that defines a publishing house today, in the year 2017. And then I would like to ask you the same question, Matthias.
Yeah, you asked me that in German, and in German it is Verlag.
Okay.
And Verlag in German is a print thing.
Is that so?
Normally, yes.
But think of Musikverlag and Filmverlag.
Yeah, but why is it a Musikverlag? Because they pay something up front and then they put something on paper.
Okay.
At least that was the case in the past. What I wanted to say is that we did take the company beyond that. It's a very core of our company, but today we consider ourselves to be a technology and media company, and that is a bit more than just old-fashioned print company.
So, sorry, I have to ask again. What defines a publishing house today, in the true sense of a publishing house then?
That we stand for excellent and compelling content, that we have a close relationship through our content with consumers, and that we build our business on that pillar.
Matthias, first, do you agree? And second, let me add another question. Do you perceive Springer also as a tech company and a media company?
No, we are a publishing house, and a publishing house today is mainly a digital business, and to run digital businesses without a high degree of technology knowledge is not working. So I would never say we are a tech company. We are never going to be a tech company, but being a media company today means that technology is a lot more important than it used to be, and it is fully integrated in the creative process. What defines a publishing house today? I mean, first of all, it always was and it remains the most important thing for a publishing house to create a culture where the best creative people feel well and are attracted by. And in that culture, then you will create simply the best stories and the best storytelling and the best creative content. And that is the success factor and always will remain the success factor. Now, the simple fact that paper as the distribution form is declining should not change anything in that context. And I think the real, let's say, the real objective for a modern publishing house is to emancipate the role of a newspaper from paper. If you get that done, or the role of a magazine from paper, then I think you have a bright future. If you're stuck with paper, then there's not too much publishing in the next decades.
Then it's bad news. But Matthias, there's another development. Think of a company like Red Bull. I mean, today, this evening, you will be on your way to Davos. We will be on our way to the party, and people will drink vodka, Red Bull and others. And Red Bull is perceived as an energy drink company. And take Red Bull as a metaphor. We can talk about many other companies as well. But they have the so-called Red Bull publishing house. And there are many, many other companies I could name which perceive themselves also as publishing houses. That's definitely new, right?
Well, I mean...
and what does it mean?
Well, I think simply to publish something does not mean that you are a publishing house in the sense that I would define it. I think it has a lot to do with independence and also with responsibility for the truthfulness of what you are distributing. I think that always was kind of a key element of publishing branded content as we know it. And I think that is going to remain intact and will even be more important in the foreseeable future. I would not enter a debate whether a company that is producing energy drinks can do that. There may be exceptions, but I think in general it's a different model and it's a different approach. Yeah.
Paul, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think the key is that we do not do publishing to sell something different. We do it because we want to be close to our consumers, to our readers, that we want to entertain them once an entertainment magazine. We want to be close to them once it comes to news, but we don't do it to sell anything else. We don't sell building, we don't sell construction, we don't sell weapons, we don't sell drinks.
Yeah, I'm glad actually.
So stay in Germany, don't move to Turkey.
Yeah, very good point. Checking and reviewing material for its veracity, that's what you said, is a characteristic which the classic publishing house on the market used to set themselves apart. Yes. But the reality in publishing houses at Burda, at Springer, is somehow different because basically those people, and we could name Gruner and Jahr and others as well, those people who are needed to verify news are being dismissed because the companies have to save money. So in other words, how do you solve this conundrum?
Well, if I look at our company, I cannot confirm that trend because, I mean, we are hiring every year more and more journalists. We have the company when I started was a little less than 10,000 people. Today it's 15,500. Large parts of that are journalists. So we have today more journalists in our company than we used to have 20 or 30 years ago. That we have in parallel developed a very important business, which we call the classified ad business, real estate, car, job portals. That is in a way something that a publisher has always done for decades. I mean, up to 70% of publishers' revenues, particularly in the UK and in the US, were in the old analog days deriving from classified ad business. It was the economic backbone of a publisher, and in a way in the digital world it still can be an important element, although we have to admit that in the analog world it was completely encapsulated in one product with the journalism. So a job classified ad simply could not work without a newspaper. In the digital world it is absolutely possible to run classified businesses extremely successfully without any affiliation to publishing or to content or to journalism. So it is a lot more separated today than it used to be, but I think it is still a kind of obvious second pillar of a company in that transformation process.
Is this debundling Matthias is talking about, is that the only difference?
The starting point of Springer, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a newspaper. So it's a daily newspaper. With Burda, it's magazines. So they come weekly and monthly. Many of our newspapers are entertainment, of our magazines are entertainment, are special interest, and only few are news. So the starting point is a bit different. So we never had a classified business. So we are not used to having a classified business. So we had to invent some other business that works along with our brands. And that's a different kind of thing. So we looked into e-commerce, we looked into all kinds of transactional business where we can put more emphasis on the relationship that we are having with the consumer and can add value to that. For instance, what was always close to magazines is selling travels, trips. So for us, doing something like TripAdvisor, Holiday Check is our name.
Makes sense.
Is very close. So we developed that kind of business. Not necessarily you have to do that very close to the magazine. So you can do that in separation, as Matthias described before. So we took a different direction, but in general, I think we look for something else. Things that we understand, that is building on the relationship that we are having with our consumers, and build a new business on top of that.
And I think it is very helpful in this process of transformation. I mean, we talked about the structural decline of print journalism. A lot of print assets still make a lot of money, but there is no structural growth. On the other hand, we have the fast-growing digital journalism, which is in our company with Politico or with Business Insider, completely new priorities, new power centers of growth, where you have a 30% top-line growth per year. But at the moment, you're in an investment phase and you're not making any money. So it will be a very profitable business, but it is not at the moment. And I think in that transformation process, publishers look for alternative sources of revenues and profits. And as you have perfectly convincingly explained, that may be different in the different companies.
you bought Business Insider for some $500 million, right?
No, less than that.
Less?
Less than 400.
490
a lot of
or-
money, yeah.
How long, for how much exactly?
Pardon me?
For how much exactly? How much did you pay for Business Insider?
Well, the total valuation of the company was roughly 400 million US dollars.
How long
yeah.
will it take to earn this money back? What do you think? Which
money
is the
back?
time frame? Yeah.
I don't know any details about it, and we can't afford. So that is why I would never talk
Come
in
on,
such
you
an
just
investment.
just spent 300 million in the UK invested in print.
Yeah, but you know, there I could understand, and there's a solid cash flow that I can rely on, and it's a business that I can develop further with a great team.
Okay,
So that's a different story.
Let me add another question. Is this the fact that you spent some $300,000 $300 million in the UK market? Indicates this an inconsistency with your strategy, or is the investment in print and digital stuff, has this always been your strategy? Because I didn't understand that. Because
to understand what is
the investment
consistent-
is print media, mainly.
So I don't know how much you know about our strategy, and I would say it's consistent. We try to
He's
build
a nice boss, isn't he?
we try to
It has been fun the last 2 years.
and absolutely no alpha male. We try to build the company on basically two pillars, if you want. So the one is the digital business and digital journalism. We try to be very good in that as well. And print. We don't believe that print walks away. We think that print magazines will have a future. It looks different from the past. But if you do compelling content and if you have a close, honest relationship with your consumers, you can build a significant business on that. And that is something we intend to do. That may be difficult if it comes to news, but it's definitely not so difficult if it comes to special interest and entertainment. And that is basically what we are doing in the UK. And that is basically where we're interested in it. And I think we can build further digital business on top of special interest magazines in the UK. So I'm glad that we arrived there.
And I'm glad that you explained me the strategy of the Buddha.
I
on stage.
explained you the components you can live with right now.
Matthias, you wanted to spend even more money some years ago in the UK acquiring the Financial Times, right? On the other hand, you sold most of your print stuff. Why?
Very simply, we would not have bought the FT because it's a newspaper. We would have bought it despite the fact that it is also still a newspaper.
So you would have bought
but
the
it
brand.
was it is. I mean, the logic of that was to transform the FT brand into a global digital brand. It is already very active, and by the way, generating a lot of revenues with its digital edition. But we saw a lot of potential, and particularly had we been able to combine that with the tremendous pipe of Business Insider that is reaching 120 million unique users worldwide, the FT 2.9 million. So one is a great brand and the highest quality of content. The other one is the world's largest pipe for business content to a business interested audience. That combination was a compelling case. Now we are with BI, and I'm deeply convinced, to come back to your other question, that the 400 million either are in a kind of 5% likelihood in a couple of years sunk money because BI fails completely. I personally think it's very unlikely. And in the other case, the way to monetize this tremendous reach and this global market leadership and an even faster growing page content unit, Business Insider Intelligence, and a short form video brand, The Insider, that has just been launched a couple of months ago and is reaching more than 1.5 billion video views, that this monetization is going to work and that money follows attention, then the price was a steal. So it is in these businesses at an early stage relative to talk about conventional valuations.
And what I admire, you know, he, although publicly listed, took a very bold decision and bought it. So I hear many people saying that we Germans don't take bold investment decisions, especially once we are public, and he did, and I love it a lot. And future will tell whether it's worth 1 billion or whatever. We'll find out. But I think it's necessary to take these kind of decisions and go for it.
What is in times of disruption? I wanted to ask you this question at the end, but it really fits now. in the times of disruption, is it easier to be a CEO of a company that is stock listed, and you have to be very transparent and all this what comes along with it, or is it easier to be a CEO of a company that is privately owned?
I'm very transparent to my owners, much more transparent than Matthias can ever be to his shareholders.
Okay.
I have a general assembly roughly every second day, so we have a continuous dialogue.
Mr. Buddha, whenever you feel to say something,
and I love it a lot. So transparency couldn't be the difference.
So what is the difference then? But there must be a difference.
Yeah, you know, once you start thinking about strategies, it starts always with understanding your resources, and then think about what you can do, what you can achieve, and where you can make a difference, and what's the USP. So for us, equity is very limited. So we have to earn our own equity. For us, it's never an option to go somewhere else and ask for equity. That is something that you can do if you are IPO'd, if you are publicly listed. So that is a big advantage. On the other hand, you have to explain to extremely many people roughly what you are doing.
He does not agree.
No, I fully agree, but I envy you if it is about transparency. I mean, I'm asked by my shareholders, could you please tell us top-line growth of Stepstone in the second quarter of 2017? Is it going to be 21 or 19%? Yeah? And then we have a debate about that. The Burda press conference once a year, as we are very happy with our growth perspectives. And that's it, basically, ladies and gentlemen. That's wonderful. Yeah.
It's about right. When I come to the office of Hubert Burda, he sits in front of the numbers and asks me, why is line number 3 that?
Yeah.
So because
how does that feel?
He has the numbers before I have it. That's transparency.
Gentlemen.
No, but let me try to give you an answer on your question. Is it better or worse? I don't know, and I think there is no easy answer. Both structures have advantages. Of course, a publicly listed company has the full exposure to the pragmatism of the markets, and that can be very healthy because you cannot afford any kind of
double
legacy romanticism, which, as we know, always in the long run is not successful. So this kind of exposure is healthy. Of course, some other aspects are very good. On the other hand, a privately owned company has, of course, is a better governance for long-term investments, anti-cyclical bets, contrarian bets, because you simply have more independence here. So I would not say it's either or, it can be both, and in both governances you can run media properties successfully.
I would love to discuss romanticism with alpha males.
Yeah, you can do that behind the stage. You can do that behind the stage. We have special rooms for that.
No, Burda is a proof that that is not necessarily happening in a privately owned company. I said in both governances you have potential disadvantages, but you can avoid them, and you avoid those.
I want to move to another topic.
I avoid the others.
Matthias, yeah. I want to move to another topic. There was a lot talk about here about fake news and the role of Facebook and so on and so forth. And I would like to ask you, do you think that the debate on fake news or post-factual news or lies, whatever you want to call it, is bad for traditional publishing houses, or it might even be a blessing for traditional houses because it tells people, hey, how to value true content?
Well, first of all, I think this whole fake news debate is a bit of a kind of buzz that I don't get fully. I mean, since we have journalism, we have fake news. And since mankind exists, we have fake news. In former times, fake news have been exchanged on markets or in bars, and people were telling other people rumors or simply wrong information. And now with social media, we have more transparency about fakes, and we have more transparency about very sad aspects of human beings. That is all more transparent, but it's nothing new. Now that we have this debate actually is good because although I think it's overrated, completely overrated, it is in a way helpful because that may show that a trustful source is a value where is a value in itself, and people may be even more interested to distinguish the one or the other. So I see it more as an opportunity.
Okay. How about you?
I wouldn't exactly say it's overrated, but what I find really interesting is what Frank-Walter Steinmeier, our Secretary for Foreign Affairs, and incoming president has been saying and writing in a FAZ article a couple of weeks ago, that the meaning of the value of truth seems to be declining. So we find out that something is fake and people don't react to it. And I think we should think about what does that mean, where does it come from, and why is the value of truth going down? And I think he perfectly described the situation.
Should we, do you think we should treat Facebook like a publishing house or not? Is Facebook a publishing house or is it not?
Yeah, Facebook is a media company. Is it a publishing
Mark
house or
Zuckerberg
not?
said we're just not a traditional media company.
Yeah, and that is absolutely right. It used to be a communication telecom-like company, but they changed their business model for good reason. Once you run a social media company, or once you run a social company or social network company, you understand that content drives engagement. Engagement times user means advertising. So if you want to get up your advertising, you need content. Full stop. So that's easy. So he has to become more and more a media company. What does it change? I don't know. He has to be, in some way, be responsible for what is happening. I think all of us have to be more responsible for what's happening in internet. And that is not the Wild West. It's not an area where no rights are valid. It must become a normal part of our life. And that basically means that all of us act responsible. I think I'm reading from the same page as Dan Rose. We met over the last 2 days and discussed it a lot. The way they would
Dan Rose from Facebook.
From Facebook. So I think they are thinking through and trying to come up with solutions to live up to that responsibility. That is not an easy, short answer, but eventually it will be sorted out.
So now it really gets interesting, because this is the first area where we have really very opposing views. I think this is one of the biggest and most fundamental mistakes of politicians and of media people and of journalists, to try to portray Facebook more and more as a media company. Mark Zuckerberg says Facebook is a technology company and I have a vision, and that is to connect people. I can live with that vision, and if Facebook plays that role, it's all good. If Facebook seriously becomes a media company, then we have to break it up. Facebook as a media company would be a world monopoly for the distribution of journalistic content if they take responsibility for certain opinions or views. Then this is the end of Facebook's role as a communication platform. We have to see Facebook like a telecommunication company. It's like AT&T or Deutsche Telekom. They connect people, and what they say is the user's choice. If somebody says something that is illegal, then Facebook has to help, and they have a responsibility here, to immediately track the person, identify the person, and make sure that the person has to live with all the legal consequences. It is a little bit like the former German distribution system for magazines and newspapers, the Grosso. If a magazine is running a cover story, the Holocaust lie, then this is illegal, then they cannot distribute that, and the publisher who has written that has to live with the legal consequences. But if a magazine runs a story, Trump is a great president, there is no reason for the Grosso system to say, oh no, we don't distribute this magazine because we don't like it. If people are saying Facebook needs an editor-in-chief, what they are doing is they are really transforming Facebook into a publisher, which then means that we don't need publishers as we know them. We are responsible for the truthfulness of what we are publishing. That's what we get paid for. We don't want to have Facebook doing that job. We want to use them as a distribution platform, and as long as they stick to that role, this is a very healthy ecosystem. If they become the new Hugenberg of the world, I have problems.
No, okay. Do you share that opinion?
Matthias is right and wrong. The right thing is we are responsible for our content, and we remain responsible for our content. And I don't expect a platform to become responsible for every piece of content that is on the platform. So the new thing is that you have some kind of responsibility how you run a platform. I wouldn't expect Facebook to become a publishing house in the traditional sense of the word, really publishing whatever on their platform with full responsibility. They can't do that. If you do that, you will never have 2 billion followers, because you will have people who oppose you. So they can't do that, and that will not be the solution. The solution will be that it is a platform where people can publish. But if you run a platform where people can publish on, you carry a certain responsibility that comes close to a media company, but it's different maybe from what we are doing. The way they do it today, for instance, on instant articles, and if you look a bit into details, and sometimes it's in the technical details, I'm sorry for that. If you want to publish something on Facebook, you have to, you go there and you can make sure that you are verified. Verified means that Facebook is checking whether you are existing. They are not checking whether you are good or whether you are bad, it's existing. If you are existing, verified, it means you can be more easily be found and you have more followers. So if normal people follow that, they can't understand whether you are from a content point of view verified because you're a good guy and you do honest stuff, or whether you only have a telephone invoice that you copied and sent to Facebook. In the past, until April 2015, it was able, because it was running in the browser, to click on the browser and you could see by going back to the homepage, what kind of guy is it? You could go back to the New York Times and see it's the New York Times, so they are responsible. And you could check on your own whether this is right or wrong and whether you trust in these people. That is no longer possible because they stopped that kind of a technical solution. And then they standardized the whole story, how you do content on Facebook. They standardized it. So in the past, you could make a difference, you look different. So you could be understood by the users that New York Times is somewhat different from some kind of fake address. And if they go that step, then they are more responsible. I expect them to go a bit away from it and take more platform responsibility. That is not a responsibility for every single piece of content, so they will not become the Hugenbergs of our times, but there is something in the middle, and that has to do with a new kind of responsibility that they have to develop. By the way, that's the same problem that we are having. We run social media platforms. We have open systems where people can contribute. What do we think about how to avoid as much as possible fake? And how do we make sure that people can understand and check what's going on the platform? And I think the same thing should hold true for Facebook.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now you know why Burda is not just a media but also a tech company. Ladies and gentlemen, I have bad news. We ran out of time. Matthias has to run to Davos. But I propose something, and if you really clap your hands, it's a deal. We continue this discussion next year at DLD, okay?